Hey guys, Asa here from Team Chelsea Smile, and today I'm going to be doing something a bit different in the form of showing off my Nekroz deck profile on Dev Pro. I currently do have this deck in real life, and right now it probably is my favourite deck, just because I think these guys look really damn cool, with the fact that they're basically the descendants of the Gishkis wearing armour based off old dual terminal monsters. And also the fact that they are OP. Very, very OP. So yeah, let's get started. I run one Dance Princess because with her, if you have her out on the field, she basically lures out all of the vanities emptinesses that your opponent has. Well, not all of them, but if your opponent has one set, and if you play her, and they don't decide to use it, but then you proceed to use one of the Nekroz ritual spells, then they cannot respond to that ritual spell because of Dance Princess. And also, when she's tributed by a card effect, I can target one of my banished Nekroz monsters and add it to my hand. Then we have the usual triple Senju and triple Manju for that searching power. Jin release of rituals, the one of him because he has what everyone knows, the Jin lock by now, which stops your opponent from special summoning monsters, because the first time I did it I managed to piss off the Quillthorpe player, and it was probably one of the most satisfying feelings in the world. Then we have the 2 Shrit, because he can be treated as a whole Nekroz ritual summon, except for Sophia, but I don't run Sophia so it doesn't really matter. And he's also good for searching as well. I've seen some people run 3 Shrit, but I personally prefer 2 because it doesn't clog as much and it's kind of more consistent. Then we have the 2 Effect Veiler, which actually works really well in this deck because it's really good in a mirror match, and it's really good against other decks like Satella Knights, which I'd say are low tier 1 right now. Because yeah, although Nekroz are higher tier than Satella Knights, it's still pretty handy to go against them, since we all know how much of a bastard Diamond can be. And it's also useful for going into Leo with Trishula if you have a Trish on the field which has used its effect. But I'll go more into that later. Then going on to the big boys themselves, we have 1 Decisive Armor because I don't know what to say about this card, because at times this card is really good and does push your OTKs, and he is an out to towers, as in a Pocket Fort towers. But other times he just clogs so much, it's so painful. So I'd say out of the Nekroz you use, he's kind of the weakest one, but he has his uses. Then we have the 1 Trishula because it's Trishula. In the deck I use in real life right now, I run 2 Trishula, but that's mainly because I only run 2 Bryanak, because we all know how much of a bastard Bryanak is to get. But when I get 3, I'm going to bump Trishula to 1 because he kind of is better at 1, because although 2 is good at times, it does clog a tiny bit. Not as bad as Decisive Armor because Trishula has a better effect, but yeah. If anything like Nekroz related gets hit on a future ban list, not the next one but probably the one after that, then I'll probably consider running 2. Then we have the 2 Valkyrus. I run 2 because I recycle it a lot with Unicorn, but other than that, I do think this card is really good because he is a source of draw power and he is a battle fader for the deck. Then we have the 1 Gungnir, which, although a lot of people use Clauseless for the Jin lock, I personally prefer to use Gungnir, where I use Madru or Senju to search Unicorn Kaleidoscope, use Kaleidoscope to send Herald to summon Unicorn, use Herald's effect to search something, then go into Lava Chain to dump Jin by detaching Unicorn, and then use probably Nekroz Mirror to summon Gungnir by banishing Jin and Unicorn. And there we go, Jin lock. And her effect for destroying monsters during either play, well, not monsters but cards, is actually kind of good. And her hand effect where she could defend them as well. Then we have the most expensive card in the deck, which is the triple Bryanak, who basically searches any Nekroz monster in the deck, whether it be a Valkyrie or even a Shrit or Dance Princess, and as I've mentioned before, Dance Princess is really helpful in this deck. And his on-field effect is actually quite good as well, where you can target 2 face-up monsters from that were special summoned from the extra deck and shuffle them back in, so he's basically a double Castell, though he's not an XZ. Then we have the triple Unicorn, which I personally say I love this card a lot, because not only is he really good for rank 4s, but his on-field effect is really good, where it negates the effects of other monsters which were special summoned from the extra deck, like Winder and Evilswarm Ophion. And his hand effect is actually quite good, where you discard him to grab a Nekroz monster from your graveyard or Nekroz card, which is also quite handy with Valkyries. So Unicorn's a definite, and I could kind of see why he's at 1 in the OCG, but I don't think he's going to go to OCG. Well, I mean, he's not going to go to 1 anytime soon in the TCG. And finally we have 2 Clauseless. I know some people prefer to run 1 of this card, but I personally like 2 for the sake of consistency, and I started using his on-field effect now, which I've only just realised is really damn good, because aside from searching all of your ritual spells, he can also target 1 monster which was special summoned from the extra deck, negate its effects and make its attack 0, which is really helpful against, say, El Shaddoll Construct. So while 1 is good for some people, I personally prefer 2, and those are all of my monsters. For the spells we have Regeki, because it's pretty much a staple, 2 Dark Hole because there are some like really annoying monsters out there which are kind of hard to get around. If like say they had Vanities out and then they had like a normal summoned monster out, you could just Dark Hole that monster then, because of Vanity's effect, Vanities would have to go to graveyard. So I personally say 2 is useful. Then we use the triple Preparation of Rites because draw power. Then, well, not draw power, but searching power from the deck or the graveyard, because this is another key card in the deck, because you could just basically search Bryanak and grab a ritual spell used this turn from the graveyard, so you can use it again in a later turn. Pretty much a staple in the deck. Doesn't really need to be explained that much. Then we run 2 of each mirror, so that because consistency. I've seen some people run 3 of this mirror, but I personally prefer 2 of each because that's probably the most consistent way you can go. Because originally, before the deck came out in February, I ran 3 of the mirror, 2 of the scope, and 1 of the cycle. But I think the 2-2-2 ratio works best, because I think 7 ritual spells is a bit too much, but 6 is just right. Then we have the triple MST for that back row hate. The Book of Eclipse, because I don't know what to say about this card, because at times it's really helpful, other times I don't think it's as great as people make it out to be. But it's really good if like your opponent's got like a full field, say if you're against Quillforts and then they had like say monsters like Disc, Carrier and Stealth out, and then you just play this and flip them all face down, because while the cost of the card is a really big negative, a big -1, it is handy at times for like flipping all of those monsters face down and then just manage to attack over them, so your opponent pretty much has nothing. And finally we have the 1 Book of Moon just for the single targets. I personally say it's got no drawback compared to Book of Eclipse, but you can only run 1 Book of Moon, so yeah. Now for the extra deck, 1 Shooting Quasar Dragon for the 2 Bryanak summons, or the Valkyries and Unicorn, or Trishula and Clauseless. The 1 Star Eater for the 1 Gungnir, 1 Unicorn player, or the 1 Valkyries and 1 Clauseless. the 1 Leo for the 1 Bryanak and the 1 Unicorn, or the 1 Gungnir and the 1 Colossus, but this guy's also good because since he's a generic synchro, I could basically say summon Trishula, banish a lot of my opponent's cards, then use my normal summon that turn to go to on Effect Veiler, then use both Effect Veiler and Trishula to go into the Leo, and then they've got a big beta which they have but my opponent might have a hard time getting over. Say Burning Abyss, for example, because as I mentioned in my Shaddoll deck profile at Dudley, I went to Leo to get game from a Burning Abyss player as it caused them to scoop as they couldn't get over it. Then we have the 2 Herald of the Arc, which is pretty much a staple in Nekroz because of its search power. Moving on to the XEs, we have the 1 Ragnar Zero for the Quillthorpe matchup, or other decks which rely on attack boosts like Yosenju, Bujins, or any other deck which uses Tenki. 101, which I still think is kind of good, but I might take up for Dark Rebellion XE Dragon because XE Dragon's ability is a bit more effective in the current metagame right now. 1 Castell, aka the better version of 101. Diamond Direwolf because... sorry about that. Because it is really useful for popping certain cards if depending on what the situation is like. It's a really situational card. The 1 Exiton Knight to Nuke the Field. Lava Vault Chain because it's a very key card in this deck because it opens up a lot of plays, whether it be for the Jin lock or top decking a Nekroz Ritual, say you want to top deck a Bryanak or Valkyrus. Daigusto Emerald because it's really good for recycling a lot of your Nekroz cards which are in the graveyard. Abystrella because it's up against, well, it's really good against decks like Burning Abyss which rely on the graveyard to activate their effects. Cowboy for those OTKs, and Rhapsody and Berserk to banish a lot of cards which your opponent might have in the graveyard which are useful to them, like say the Nekroz Mirror Match or Shaddolls even. Now onto the side deck, which this isn't going to be my final side deck, though I might be taking it to regional if I can actually make it there. But even if I don't make it, this probably won't be my side deck for the future, but we'll just have to wait and see. 1 Kaiko because it banishes stuff from the graveyard. The 2 Fire Hand and 2 Ice Hand because they're really useful for popping stuff, and they do cause, like, Fire Hand dies, uses its effect to pop monsters, summon Ice Hand because of that trick. The 2 Maxi because draw power. And it stops your opponent, well, it doesn't really stop your opponent from special summoning, but it makes them think that do they really want to let you draw loads of cards while they special summon? That causes that question, so because I might have something which might get me game next turn. The same thing can be said about Shared Ride because it's kind of like Maxi, but it's a spell and it involves your relying on your opponent searching. The 2nd Book of Eclipse in case I'm up against the mirror. 2 Twister for that Quillthorpe hate. Typhoon because I'd say this card is interesting because I could, if I don't have any Twisters, if they Mind Crush my Twisters, I could just use Typhoon as a backup. And then the 2 Mind Crush because it is really handy in certain situations, especially in this format. And that's my Nekroz deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys later.